Okay, cool. So first of all, before we start, I usually take a picture of the crowd before I start. This is the first time actually I'm going to have to take a panoramic picture. So let's try that. It's working. Cool. Whoa, it's huge. Okay, got it. I'll post it. I'll send it to you, Florina, later on. Okay, so my name is Amit Ashbel. I work for Checkmarks. I'm here today to talk about Game of Hacks. Um, we'll go through some introduction about application security, which is what we do at Checkmarks. We do static analysis. We'll talk about what Game of Hacks is. We'll understand also what's behind Game of Hacks. So it's not only a game, it's much more than that. We'll have a short game, which I need your participation in. So anyone who has wireless, mobile, or laptop, whatever, get it ready. There's going to be a quiz. And even though we're giving out the t-shirts outside, I'll give the winner an extra one. If we have time, I'll talk a bit about Node.js, which is the platform and the language that the framework that Game of Hacks is based on. And of course, at the end, we'll go out with some takeaways. So hopefully everything will work as planned. And let's start. So what you see at the moment is kind of what we're talking about, the problem. So the problem is people hacking into large organizations in different means, different ways. But the bigger problem, which is why security became such a big thing, is because it costs a lot of money to these organizations. If you look, for example, at Target, just the costs of the data they lost was $162 million just for the data, and then they have the lawsuits and the reputation that they've lost, and all of that has kind of cost them probably a few hundreds of millions of dollars. With the OPM breach that was a few months ago, 5.6 million fingerprints were stolen. So it's not even passwords or usernames or things like that. It's fingerprints. So fingerprints of official American employees, government employees, very, very sensitive data. Obviously, it has a value in cash as well. Ashley Madison, we all heard of this one, other than the fact that it's embarrassing for a few people who were caught red-handed. There's, again, the reputation. The company was kind of being asked to close down. They didn't close down, but a lot of money was spent and will be spent on fixing the problem that happened due to the breach. Sony, also a famous one. I'm not going to go into too much details about it, but again, reputation, profit loss. They showed the movie, what was it? The Interview, I think it was called. They put it on the internet for free instead of being able to make money out of it. And more and more and more organizations that are being hacked regularly and constantly. The thing is that it becomes more and more obvious that breaches are occurring on the level of the development, so on the level of the code. If the code is not perfect, if the code is not protected, no firewall, no endpoint protection, nothing can prevent from a user logging on and running an SQL injection. If the code is not sanitized, it's not clean, it's not secure, the hack will always happen. And we're seeing that more and more of the attacks are targeting the application layer. So at Checkmarks, as I said, we do static analysis. And static analysis means having developers involved in the security effort. So it's not only the security personnel that are in charge of it, it's not only the IT, for example, installing firewalls and stuff like that, but it's also the developers. And what triggered our idea was when we were at a conference about a year ago or a bit more, and we saw a bunch of people, just like you and me, standing in front of a big billboard, and we came up closer and we looked and it had something like this on the screen. There was no prize, nothing, no fame, nothing at all. They were just standing there, a bunch of developers trying to figure out what the vulnerability is. So we understood it's really interesting for them. So there's some kind of potential here. On top of that, there are researches and concerns by CISOs, which the main two are the awareness and the training of developers when it comes to security. So a lot of the CISOs are becoming more and more aware that developers have to become part of this effort, the security effort. We put these two together, so the guys looking to find a vulnerability and the awareness, the research that was publicized, and we said, okay, let's do something, let's make something, and we created Game of Hacks. Game of Hacks was launched about August last year. Since then, we had hundreds of thousands. This presentation is a few months, no, not a few months, but it's a bit outdated. More than 100,000 games were played since then by people who were trying to test their coding skills. Let's take a short look at Game of Hacks, and I hope the wireless is fine. And this is the idea of Game of Hacks. It's very simple. It's available online, www.gameofhacks.com. You choose if you want to play by yourself or against a friend, and then you can challenge a friend. If I play by myself, I choose the level that I want to play. Let's have a vote. Who wants beginner? 1, 2, 3. Don't be shy. It's okay. I'm not going to be able to figure out the beginner as well. Who wants intermediate? Okay, you're all the same. Come on. I'll put beginner on. And let me know if anyone can get this. So you get a piece of code. You get a piece of code on the screen in a second. There it is. And you have to tell what the vulnerability is. If anyone wants to guess. The vulnerability is PHP. Any guesses? If not, I'll just choose any of them. LDAP injection. Correct. Okay, and this is how it goes. It continues. So you have five questions, I think. Each question has a few options of answers. It becomes more harder. It becomes more interesting for some people. And it's actually a very good way to educate developers, to educate security and people who are developing applications. But there was a bit more behind that. So Game of Hacks was indeed kind of a, let's say, marketing and awareness education tool. But we said, okay, if we're going to do something, it's probably going to attract hackers. It's probably going to attract the black hat guys who want to, show off, show they're better than us or than anyone else. So what we did was that we made a honeypot out of it as well. And our assumption was completely correct. And very quickly, we found out that people were, rather than playing the game and finding the vulnerabilities, were hacking Game of Hacks. And that's okay, because we left it open on purpose. We wrote the code in a way that will allow vulnerabilities and that will let people hack and show off their skills. So some of the things that you can see people wrote on here, tries to teach security, fails at security. Ironically, it's easy to hack a game about finding security bugs. And then someone was clever enough to say maybe that was the meta game. So yes, that was the meta game, but not only. A bit about the architecture, so a bit more boring. Game of Hacks is based on Node.js. So we have the client side running on web browsers, mobile phones, iOS, Android. I must admit that I never tried it on Windows, but I'm guessing it'll work. If anyone has a Windows, who has a Windows phone in here? Seriously? Two? Two out of three, four, five. Wow. Six? So we have, nice, not bad, impressive. Impressive. Windows are happy. Bill Gates is, we'll check next year again. Okay, so it runs on a client side on a browser, and then we have the Node.js architecture running on the Heroku with MongoDB, which work very well together, usually MongoDB and Node.js. Node.js is interesting. It's been catching up lately a lot. The reason for that is kind of because it's very, very good for web applications, for quick I/O functionality. And this is an explanation about how Node.js works. I'll quickly review it, but I have a better slide that is easier to explain. The idea is that the event loop is the brain of the system. It gets constantly requests from the event queue. And it passes it on to someone to do the work. So the event handlers, the file system, database, network, things like that. Whenever the event loop itself has to do a calculation, it will do the calculation. It won't do anything else until it finishes that, which is the bad side of Node.js. So it's very CPU. It's not good for CPU-intensive applications. A better way to explain that is this. So you have a fast food restaurant. You have the single thread, which is the event loop, the handler, the event loop itself. And then you have the event handlers, which are the people who are getting the tasks, bring me Coke, bring me a hamburger, bring me fries, bring me anything like that. And the guy at the cashier, which is constantly getting requests from the line, from the what we call the event queue, is always free to take more events, more tasks. However, if you give him something difficult, all of the people in the line won't get their food, probably. Okay? So that's Node.js, and that's the platform that we used for Game of Hacks. Again, looking at Game of Hacks, the different entities, and you'll see along the line why I'm talking about this. There's the difficulty level, which is marked at the top, the score that you're gaining. There's the timer, 60-second timer, the question, of course, the answers, and the code snippet itself. These are all the different parts of Game of Hacks, where all of them, of course, are a target for hackers to attack. So what did people do? What did we get out of this honeypot? What did hackers try to do? So players or hackers or just people who are accessing the website, the game, were able to figure out that you can send the same answer on the same question many times. And someone wrote here, so he writes, Alex here, after getting a question correct, you can submit the same post request with the same answer and very large negative number for the time. I imagine they're just adding your newly calculated score, 30 minus time, to your session previous score. And then at the end he says, a lesson at sanitizing inputs. He's right, and that was possible. So what we did, once we detected that someone found that vulnerability that we left in there, we added a question already answered flag on the server side. Another thing that people did was play around with the timer. The timer was calculated on the client side. Calculating a timer on the client side, sorry, but it's plain stupid. People were stopping the timer, answering the question, then sending their own time that they decided. In many cases, they sent a negative number, so minus 999999999, and that calculation gave them a score as high as possible because of our calculation. So what's the solution for that? It's very simple. Where should we calculate? Calculate the time on the server side. And yes, there is some kind of network influence, but it's very, very minor, and it's negligible in this type of application. Another nice thing that happened, and this one is not one that we put in on purpose. I still don't know how to explain it, but it's iOS. No one knows how to explain iOS. So someone found that if you play it on iOS and you put your finger on the screen, the timer stops. So that was also a trick that someone was hacking the hack, they called it. And now I want everyone to take out their cell phones or something that you can browse in the internet. We're going to have a game. It's fun. I'm not going to hack any of you. I'm not a hacker. Just wearing a black hat. Someone gave it to me. Let's go. So I'm going to launch the game. You're going to get a pin code on the screen. If you go to kahoot.it, is the sound working? Let me get the volume up. Yeah, browser. Anything. I see people starting to join. That's good. I did this at DefCon. We had more than 100 players. So let's see if we can break that. Oh, nice. You like my small goats? 70. Who hasn't joined? Are we supposed to hear the sound on the speakers around? It'd be much nicer if we can. It's coming from here at the moment. I did. Oh, I don't. What did I do here? This, this, this. So how do I? Oh, I mute this. Switch to what? Speakers, right? Or headphones? I don't know what to do. Windows, too complicated. Never mind. We'll do it without music. I'll sing. I'll sing. Okay, we have 114 players. I'm going to start now. There's still time to join, so don't worry. I'm going to ask you a question. At the beginning, we're going to have 2 or 3 questions just so you get the idea of it. First question, no points. Is everyone comfortable in their seats? You have the colors, choose in your colors. And it's really sad that we don't have the music. It has really cool, it adds to the atmosphere. Oh, I know why. No. Playback devices. This one. Set as default. Still no sound. Okay. We'll give it 1 minute. It's just much nicer when you have some music in the background. That way I don't feel embarrassed standing here on stage, completely silent. It's coming from here. It's strange. It's coming from the TV. No. Maybe this is not connected. Well.
Try it now. Maybe it will hurt from this a little bit more.
Okay, let's continue anyway. I mean, it's we don't want to waste your time. Last chance to join if everyone hasn't joined yet. How many participants do we have? Does it say on there? Oh, there's a sound. Okay, a bit better. 132 answers. 5 more seconds. We're gonna get a bit more serious in a second. Nice. Let's see how. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Don't worry, it happens everywhere. Okay, next question. What about this one? No, okay, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. We'll skip this one. Okay, now we're starting seriously. We're gonna have some code on the screen. We're gonna have some code on the screen. I hope it'll show properly. It's gonna give you. It's like Game of Hacks. Okay, same format. And let's go. This is beginner level. So I want at least 60% correct answers. 10 more seconds. If you don't know, just guess. All right. Let's see. Okay. Okay, that's reasonable considering the fact that not everyone here is a developer, I hope. Next one. Another one. Another piece of vulnerability in the code. I don't know the answer, by the way. Nice. Very nice. Okay, let's go on. I'm going to ask you some questions about Game of Hacks as well. But before that, extra points. Which one is Tom? It's different in every country, by the way. Some people are like obvious, and other countries it's not that clear. And now, of course, we have everyone answered. 145. Nice, very nice. It's a tomcat. Okay, tomcat. Some of you know tomcat, right? Apache, things like that. Okay, let's move on. Another vulnerability, I think that's the last vulnerability. After that, we have some questions about Game of Hacks, about what we talked about. This one is supposed to be a bit more difficult. Okay, nice. Very nice. How many answers did we get? Did someone notice? I'm not going to calculate all of that. More than 100. Okay. Okay, who is... I don't know how to pronounce that. Sekov? Nice going. And MD? There's a doctor in the room? Oh, hey. Nice going, guys. Okay, so this one is regarding the Game of Hacks question. So if we randomize the answer order, what's the problem if we randomize it on the client? Yeah, I gave you a little time for this. Next time I'll give you some more. The server won't know the correct answer, of course. If the client randomizes, there's no way for the server to understand what the correct answer is. We talked about this one. Who should be validating the answer correctness? I want 100%. Red is the answer. Should be 145. We had 145 before. Okay, yeah, that was 100% right. So obviously the server has to go through that. One piece of Node.js code. If anyone can recognize the problem here. Very nice. That was a problem we discussed initially. Not many more. That's the last one before another one that's just interesting for my curiosity. We had that calculation of the score, 60, time to answer, difficulty, which parameter would be easiest to break. And I showed you the answer to that in the presentation itself. All right. Time to answer, correct. Very nice. Okay, last question. No points. It's just out of my curiosity because of what we do, check marks. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to, but I really like to know the percentages. I'm guessing some of you use more than one, some of you don't use any of these, some of you do manual testing, but that was just out of my curiosity, and it's interesting to see that, oh, you have more static analysis than dynamic analysis. That's good, that's smart, even though I think you need both of them at the end of the day. Okay, so we're done with the game. Now comes the, oh, MD, you passed Sekov. Sorry guys, I'll give you both t-shirts. And if you all come to the booth, I'll give all of you t-shirts. So it was not worth the effort of the game. Okay, cool. So going back to the presentation, we're talking about Node.js. Now this is the difficult part of the presentation for me, because I have to try and make a demo work, and it usually doesn't work. But we were talking about Node.js. The platform is based on Node.js. The fact that Node.js is not good for CPU-intensive functionality. And remember this, a single thread, the guy at the cashier, he can't do stuff that requires him to think. Thinking is not good. You have to take and pass it on. If you think, you delay everyone else. No one gets their food. So we found this, we wrote this small piece of code with an attempt to cause denial of service. Don't know if all of you know Seinfeld. Do you know Seinfeld? So no soup for you. So denial of service. This small piece of code actually takes the number 1 and the number p, calculates the sum of the numbers together. So it's a CPU intensive task in case the number is big. When the number is small, obviously it's smaller, and I'll show you how it works in a demo and what the problem is. Now this is going to be difficult. Okay. Can we see the full screen? Yeah, okay. So what we're actually doing now is running the script in on a web browser. So if we look at the end of this URL code, URL line, you'll see that at the moment it's calculating until the number 1. So easy, it's 1. And you also saw that when I clicked it, it came up very quickly, 1. Now, what I'm going to do, and it sometimes crashes my computer, so I hope it won't this time. I'll change this one into 5. So it should be 15, the answer, if I'm not mistaken. And I'll change this one into 10 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What do you think is going to happen if I run both of them together? Or if I run first the 10 million and then the 5? Anyone? Sorry? So it won't crash them. It won't, well, unless it might crash them if I really did a denial of service act if it was too heavy for the task. But what will happen, and I hope that I'll be able to show it to you, is that the 10,000, the 10 million, the calculation is very heavy. So it's going to take up the full CPU. I have quad core on here. It's going to take up 25% of the CPU, and it won't let the smaller calculation come in before it completes. Okay, so let me try that. I'm going to click enter here. Ah, it was a bit fast. So if I add another 0, it'll be probably, or maybe I shouldn't add 0 because then I'll crash it. So let's try this. Oops. Told you that was the hard part of the presentation. See, now it took a bit longer. So it won't, the idea that I'm trying to show is, and I'm being gentle because it's my laptop, the larger the number will be, the more time it will take to do the calculation, the more time we're taking up the resources, the CPU resource, and the event loop, the Node.js, won't be able to continue doing anything else. This is the idea. It's very simple to run denial of service on a Node.js application if no one did any sanitization or validation on the fields themselves. Okay, another thing about Node.js, which is interesting, Node.js usually works very well with MongoDB. The reason for that is that Node.js is kind of naturally adapted to JSON, and MongoDB is naturally adapted to be a kind of a, I don't know how you call it, a document database. It's not table based, and they both work together very well. So again, without proper validation, someone can send out a Node.js, a JSON query string that the MongoDB will translate and be able to either run an SQL injection without SQL, which is another demo that I don't have time to show today, or you can also use regex. And as we all know, regex is very heavy on the CPU. So again, if there's no validation on there, someone can run a huge regex like this one, for example, and crash the system. Again, let me see if I can do that. So if I open my task manager now, it's not like letting me log in, of course, because I didn't put in the right credentials. But if I open up the task manager and you take a look at the CPU here, okay, goes up to 25% immediately by MongoDB. If I did a longer regex, which again I'm avoiding because it's my laptop, I don't want to crash my laptop now, not in the middle of a presentation, it would block the whole CPU for a longer time, of course. So that's what we call regex denial of service. It's something that has been researched and has been discussed in the past for Node.js. A few takeaways. So, why was I talking about games? What's the whole point here? So I started at the beginning by mentioning that we believe that developers should be part of the security effort in each organization. If you're developing code, the first step has to be that the code is secure. The way, or the best way, in my opinion, and this is how we actually execute our products, is to make it interesting, make it easy for developers. Developers want to develop and get rid of the code and, pass QA and that's it. But if you want them to do security also, you have to bring them in. You have to get you have to get them to want to do security. So it has to be interesting, easy to do, and a lot of it and a lot of education today is around gamification. So whenever you can gamify your education, do that. You can use Game of Hacks. It's on the web for free at gameofhacks.com. Regarding usage of code, of course, don't think I need to say that here, but validate input length, validate the input in general. Um, you have to study each language. Each language has its own pitfalls. For example, Node.js has the CPU issue. It has the JSON string issues that developers have to be aware of. Learn the language that you're developing, learn its problems, learn its pitfalls. Mentioned Node.js, CPU intensive, and that is more or less it, unless there are questions. Questions? I asked you a lot of questions, yeah. The source code for the demos? I can send you that. I think I can send you that. I'll check with our developers internally. If you wanna give me a business card or stop by the booth later on, give me your email. Any more questions? Wow. Should I be insulted or was I very clear? Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, question. No applause.
Is there any way to do like distributed denial of service attack directly from the Chrome DevTools, for example?
Sorry?
Directly from the Chrome DevTools
It's a good
in the
question.
console.
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't know. I must admit I don't know the answer. I'm not a security coder, so I can check that again and
Like,
get back to you.
is there any possibility to bypass, I don't know, Chrome filters and do
There
a
is-
for
there-
loop with
if we're talking
requests
about-
directly from the Chrome DevTools, for example?
If we're talking about Chrome, there's
or Firefox DevTools, I don't want to.
so we can check that offline. Not sure about. I don't think I can give you a straight answer right now. Okay. Any more
We
questions?
have time for 2 more questions.
Okay. Oh, there is. Make it an easy one. Like, what's your name or something like that.
How do you generate the code snippets?
The code snippets on the game, you mean?
Yes.
So it's actually a cool thing. First of all, we collected a lot of code snippets by ourselves and we put them on there. But later on, we allowed customers and people playing the game to send us code snippets as well that they found. What happens with a lot of our customers is that, well, it's an interesting story. Some of our customers actually asked to have the game of hacks as part of our product in their organization. So not a public one, but a game where their developers can test the code in static analysis, and then when they find problems, they can share that on the game of hacks, and the other developers will learn from it. Again, educational, very important. We were thinking of doing that. We might do that in the future. It's an interesting approach, but we collect code snippets from anyone who wants to share them.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
More questions?
Yes, we have here.
Oh, we have.
Hi.
Hi.
You know how researchers distributed a sort of game where they ask the players to align DNA sequences in order to find the genes responsible for certain diseases or something like that. And it helped them further their research because a lot of players did what their computers couldn't do.
Yeah.
So would you consider using Game of Hacks to do this?
So I think that part of what we did with Game of Hacks, it's not exactly similar to what you're describing. And first of all, I agree with, the more people you have looking at something, the more information you get, obviously. But what we did with Game of Hacks was we, on purpose, caused it to be vulnerable, which gave us more information about it, of course.
I didn't mean the game. I meant the code snippets.
The code snippets within the game?
Yes. Use, I don't know, get more opinions and
So yeah,
from
we're
different developers.
we're getting constantly more snippets from different developers globally. I think that if we go to the game itself, let me just try that. I think there's an option to send.
Or maybe you could add a feature instead of just choosing the vulnerability, add a comment.
Sorry, add a feature instead of.
Well, on top of choosing the vulnerability, maybe you could add a comment about the code.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we want to add to the game. There's stuff like, you know, how would you solve the vulnerability? What's the best way to solve the vulnerability? And things like what you mentioned. And this screen is the first screen on the page. You can also submit your own code with the answers, of course. So that's something that we have the developer community participate with us. But yeah, I agree. There's a lot more that we can do, and we will.
Thank you.
Okay. No
Any
more
other
questions?
questions?
Thank you very much then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.